Hey, what's happening? Jason Priester, Monday Live, allclemsontigers.com. It was a sunny day in the upstate today. Shades been floating around out there since March the 9th. We can put them away now. Four-star safety Tay Harris commits to Clemson, former Georgia commit. First came to Clemson summer before last, if I'm remembering that right. Worked out at camp. Might have been last summer. Don't hold me to that. Anyways, got him back to campus, for the most recent junior day on March the 9th. I sat down and had a telephone conversation with him that night. Shades went out that night. Didn't know when it was going to come. Didn't even know if it was imminent, but I knew it was coming. He told me he still had one more visit scheduled and he wasn't sure if he was going to take it. I kind of leaned towards thinking he wasn't going to. And obviously, he is now not going to. Top 200 talent, man. One of the best safeties in the class. Again, a former Georgia commit. He was committed to Georgia for a while, from last summer all the way up through January. They lose, his position coach, and he decides to open things back up. Clemson offers almost immediately, and once they got him on campus, that it was already heading that direction. But once they got him back on campus again, that sealed it, man. His parents loved, or I know he told me his mom loved it. I think he told me he took his maybe he took somebody else with him. He told me, I can't remember who it was now, but they made him feel like a priority. Kept telling him they wanted him, and in the end, they won out. Solid class Clemson's putting together there in 2025, man. I think it's currently ranked third in the composite. Most of you know me, know I'm not a big believer in or a big follower of recruiting rankings, but they're fun to talk about. But that's about it. But it's always, if you're up there near the top, it's always good from a perception standpoint. At the very least, something you can hang your hat on and sell to some of these kids. Was in Durham yesterday for the rubber match between Clemson and Duke, and let me tell you something. That is probably one of the best teams in the country, at least offensively. Man, that Clemson went out on the road and took 2 out of 3 from this weekend. They dropped the opener on Friday. Saturday morning, I'm seeing comments on Facebook about firing the coach and how the team can't win once they get into the meat of the schedule. Man, you can tell the people that don't follow baseball very closely. Clemson's like 34-4 in their last 38 games, and that's including the meat of the schedule last year. Anybody wants to fire Eric Bakich is out of their freaking mind, man. I could not believe. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't seeing a bunch of them or anything, but I saw more than one. And if it's just one isolated thing, that's one thing. But when I see more than one, that kind of draws your attention, man. People, golly, man, people just we live in a society that just overreacts to every little thing. It's baseball. You are going to lose some games. You are going to lose a minimum of 1/3 of the games you play, probably. You if you can get on base 3-4 times out of 10 plate attempts or 10 plate appearances, man, that's pretty solid. Baseball is a game of failure. You're probably going to fail more often than you succeed, and that's one of the things I love about it, man. It creates character, and I think this Clemson baseball team is not only littered with talent, top to bottom, but man, just they've got the right mindset. They don't ever stop, man. When they get down, they just keep coming, man. They played from behind far more often this year than they've played from ahead. So I mean, that's not been a big problem so far. Not ideal. You'd rather play from ahead. Don't get me wrong, but they've certainly showed they're capable of coming back, man. And I just could not, man. I knew what Duke was offensively going in, but the defense, oh my God, man, they made some incredible plays in the field. Not just yesterday while I was there, but all weekend long, man. Their Friday starter, Santucci, is elite. Their closer is elite. When Clemson got to him yesterday late in that game, that was the first earned run he'd given up all season. Um, they threw him Friday night, and they brought him back out yesterday. I think he was around 100 pitches in those two appearances. Probably left him out there a batter or two too long, man. Pushed it just a little too far, seeing if they could, get through. But that is a good baseball team. They're going to win a lot of baseball games. And Clemson went out on the road, took 2 out of 3 from them. Winthrop at home tomorrow night, and then they play Presbyterian Wednesday at Fluor Field. Don't think there's any television or any streaming for that one. And then you welcome Florida State, who is probably going to come in undefeated, which is also a little unheard of at this point of the season. Usually you've dropped a game or two, kind of like Clemson's dropped 2 so far, but Florida State's unbeaten. Hasn't played the toughest of schedules, but and you're unbeaten at this point in the season. That's impressive. I don't care who you played. Then we've got basketball, who's going to kind of limp into the tournament after that embarrassing, piss-poor performance up there in D.C., man. Jesus. You wait till you get to the ACC tournament to turn in your worst performance of the season. Every member of that staff, every member of that team, not coaches, players, support staff, they should be embarrassed by that performance, man. It is what it is. It was just a terrible performance. The further they got down, the worse it got. I don't think Clemson's a team that's really built to play, come back from large deficits. But geez, man, you at least got to look like you're putting in the effort. Interesting matchup for Clemson in the first round. I thought New Mexico I thought Clemson probably got seated a spot or two higher than they probably should have been. I was expecting 7, maybe 8, and I thought New Mexico got seated a little lower than they probably should have been. I think they're 25th or something like that in the net. They're ranked higher than the net Clemson is. And when some of the books opened up betting lines yesterday, I don't know what it is today, but I looked at 3 or 4 of them, and I think one of them had it as a pick, and one of them has Clemson as a slight favorite. One of them had New Mexico as a slight favorite, but they have very good guard play. Clemson has very inconsistent guard play, and that's been one of their biggest problems of this season. It's a guard-driven game now, and if you don't get strong guard play, you're not going to go very far in these kind of tournaments. Fortunately, Clemson's got a couple of guards that are streaky and can get hot, and if they do, they can win a game or two in this thing, man. But if the guards aren't playing well, Clemson's they'll probably have an early exit on Friday. It will be very interesting to see who shows up there in Memphis Friday. Yes, Tristan Smith and Aiden Canuck are both have been outstanding, man. Y'all know I've been tooting Canuck's horn since before I even laid eyes on him, and then after I laid eyes on him in the preseason, I was more than 100% sold. That guy he is not your typical freshman. And if it's me, I know ideally you'd like to have the righty on Friday, the lefty on Saturday, and the righty on Sunday. But if it's me, I'm at least having the conversation about moving Tristan to Friday. He's your best. He's your best pitcher so far through up until this point in the season so far. He's been the most consistent. And that's not a knock on Canuck because he's been pretty dang good too. But Smith's been a little bit more consistent, and he's got a little bit more experience. So if it's me, I'm at least having that conversation because Austin Gordon just doesn't look like he's there yet. He's had 2 Friday starts in a row, and he's given up some hits and some runs. And when he misses, man, when he makes mistakes, they tend to get deposited out over the fence. And I think you like to throw your best guy on Fridays. And I know Clemson didn't do that last year, and they had a lot of success not throwing their best guy on Friday. But you got two elite level starters right now. I'm at least having that conversation. Eleven verbals may be Dabo's fastest building class so far. Yeah, they are putting the hay in the barn, as Dabo likes to say. And the thing is, they have handed out far fewer offers than they generally do. I don't even think they're at 60 yet for this class. I don't think they've handed out 60 offers yet. I'd have to go back and check that to be sure, but I think the last time I looked, they were at 50 something. Usually they hand out, it's in the ballpark of 100. Yeah, they generally hand out far fewer than most everybody else. They're handing out even fewer this go around. They've been a little bit more methodical in their approach, and is so far is paying off, because this looks like it's going to be, one of their best classes in several years, easily, probably. Yeah, could there be a defensive line commit coming in the near future? We'll see, man. I don't know. Things tend to be trending in the right direction with some of these guys. That is for sure. Yeah, Tay Harris can motor, man. He put up some some numbers that I forget what camp he worked out. I think it was just this past weekend, or maybe last week one day. He put up some numbers that'll turn your head from a speed standpoint. So yeah, he's got legit speed. I don't have the answer to what happened to Clemson in the ACC tournament. I think they got behind, and I think they panicked, and they did not look like a team that's got a bunch of seniors on it, and everybody wants to point the finger at the coach. But hey, man, the players need to set some accountability in this too. You still got to go out perform, man. And I don't think anybody went out perform that night, particularly in the second half. It was ugly. It was hard to watch. Um, when your big man PJ Hall's got like 3 rebounds in the past 2 or 3 games, that's a concern, man. And I know he's been playing banged up, but he's actually, it come out last night that he actually returned to practice right before the Boston College game. So at least you got him back practicing now. He wasn't practicing for weeks, but even playing banged up, you expect him to get more than 3 rebounds over 2-3 games, whatever it was. He's got to be more aggressive on the boards, and I've been saying it for weeks. He's got to play smarter, man. I just he makes some dumb fouls at times, man, on plays that he should just let go. He's got to know when to. He's got to learn how to, worry about winning the war instead of winning every battle. You're going to lose some battles on the court, and I think he gets so wrapped up in the competition part of it, he wants to win every battle, and sometimes that hurts you in the war, and he ends up fouling out more than he should. Chase Hunter couldn't throw the ball into Ocean that night. He's not been that great of a, from the perimeter most of the season, but he was over. You got 3-pointers from Gerard, but they all came in the first half. Teams have kind of started to learn. Once Clemson got into conference play, I think teams started learning how to defend them, and Gerard's a great spot-up shooter. He's not a great ball handler. He doesn't move around well in space. He's not the most athletic guy. So when he's got somebody out there that can stick to him like glue, it makes it tough on him. And New Mexico's got really good guards. I don't know how good they are defensively, but man, they can score. It's going to be imperative Clemson's guards play really good defense. It'll be interesting to see how Brad Brownell, goes about defending New Mexico, because we all know Gerard gives you very little on the defensive end. I mean, it's just who he is. He's not a very good defender. Never has been, even when he was at Syracuse. And Chase Hunter's been very up and down as a defender this year. I thought he was pretty solid last year. He seems to have taken a little step back in that department this year. Um, so we'll see how they decide to defend those guards. But I think there have been 71 ACC tournaments, and Clemson has been one and done 49 times now. 49 times. I have not even filled out the brackets yet, so I can't answer that just yet. Think this baseball team is made of the right stuff. Yeah, I love the makeup of this team, man, and they're playing, really well right now, despite missing Nolan Naraki, who's been out the past few games, Jake Terrell, who's been out. Overtop's having to catch every game, and that really wasn't the plan coming into the season. And you've been doing it with I know Cam was back in center this weekend, but you've had to use Cam Canarell at DH for a lot of the season, so you're doing it in ways you weren't expecting to have to do it. But man, there's really no weaknesses in that lineup. I know Will Taylor's still in that slump. He's still hitting under 200. I'm never going to view that guy as a weakness. I don't care if he's in a season long slump. He's bound to come out of it at any point on any given day. I think I think I got him right here. I remember when last time we talked about him slumping, and I remember saying it's not like he's up there striking out a bunch, and I think that's still the case. Yeah, he struck out 14 times all season, so it's not like he's not putting the ball in play, man. At some point, the worm's going to turn for that guy, and they're going to start falling. Thought maybe he came out of it a couple weeks ago and he hit those 3 home runs in the midweek game, but he's still on the struggle bus a little bit. Yes, Duke's defense, their fielding was it was just outstanding, man. They made some plays in the field that would just, a couple yesterday that just had my mouth wide open. It was impressive. When that ball came off of the ball that was hitting to the right field corner late. Clemson showed off some of their defensive skills too. That ball that was hitting to the right field corner late, with Mathis hitting the cutoff guy, Purify getting the runner dead to rights at home. When that ball came off the bat, I thought that guy was going to score easy, man. And Mathis, he played it perfectly, and he's got an arm, man. Mathis's arm is impressive. So it wasn't just Duke's defense, but yeah, they robbed Clemson of some, a few more runs a couple of times. I know there was one inning yesterday where I think Clemson had runners on first and third, man, and they hit a line drive, and the shortstop just went up and it seemed like he jumped 15 feet up in the air and pulled that thing down and was out number 3. So that saved a run. I mean, their defense was absolutely impressive. They can hit the ball, but I didn't know how good they were defensively until I saw it, this weekend, and I got to see it in person yesterday, and they're pretty dang good. If Cam can get going again, and Will Taylor can finally start to catch fire. Yeah, Cam's a little bit of a slump now too. I know, and he came up yesterday, and he was over for 4 when he came up the last time. I remember telling somebody up there, golly, he's about due, but he ended up going over. He's kind of like Taylor though, man. You expect him to come out of it at any time, and when we're talking baseball, and this as good as anybody, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. There's going to be peaks and valleys, peaks and valleys. deepest that I can remember our bullpen has ever been. It's a little deeper than it's been in a little while, in a minute for sure. Somebody asked me yesterday what was before yesterday's game, how what kind of shape Clemson was bullpen was in, and I was like, yeah, believe it or not, they haven't really taxed that thing, man. Over the first 2 days, they still got guys. Nick Clayton didn't pitch until yesterday. Reed Garris didn't pitch until yesterday, and you got Mostad who can go on back-to-back days. Matt Marshall didn't pitch until yesterday, if I'm remembering right. So yeah, I mean, there's some depth out there, man, and Rob Hughes has been absolute dynamite out of that pen so far. I know Ethan Darden got rocked on Saturday, but he's been really good coming out of that pen. I think his ERA was under 1 before Saturday. I bet if Packers had to do that again, he might would have took him out a batter or two earlier. But I fully expect him to bounce right back, man. Again, that's a good hitting lineup. And one of the things Jimmy Bellinger demands out of those pitchers is throw strikes. If they're going to hit it, let the defense play behind you. And those pitchers did not walk one batter yesterday in 10 innings. 45, 46 at bats for Duke. They didn't walk a guy. They didn't hit a guy. No free passes. You got to like the direction the pitching is headed under this new coaching staff. Surprise, Clemson got a 6 seed. Yeah, the committee, gave them some props, I guess, for their out of conference. I was kind of, again, like I said at the top, I was kind of expecting a 7, and it wouldn't have shocked me if they got an 8. I was a little surprised by the 6. I didn't think they could be any lower than an 8. And I thought New Mexico would probably be a little bit higher because I think they're 24th or 25th in the net, but they don't just look at the net and determine seeding that way. You can, we already know that, but yeah, I was a little surprised by the 6, especially after North Carolina State won the tournament, ACC tournament on Saturday. I figured that hurt Clemson's seed line, and maybe it did. Maybe they were a 5 before all that because, I think going into the ACC tournament, some people had them projected as a 5, and then after they get run out of the building by Boston College, then you've got people dropping them a seed line or two, but not of all the 6 seeds, Clemson by far got the hardest draw in New Mexico. If you're going by net rankings, anyways. I looked at that thing earlier today, and now I can't remember what it was. Let's see here. Yeah, New Mexico's actually ranked 22nd in the net. The 11th seed in the Midwest region is Oregon. They're 59th in the net. NC State's the 11th seed in the South. They're 63rd in the net. And Duquesne is the 11th seed in the East. They're 83rd in the net. So of all the 6 seeds, Clemson by far got the hardest draw of the 11 seeds. And maybe that's a little bit of, has a little bit of something to do with, coming in having lost 3 or 4. Yes, they got the worst draw of the 6 seeds, absolutely. Wanting to fire Backets might be one of the stupidest things I've ever seen. The guy and his elite coach. Yes, I just nothing ever surprises me anymore. But when I saw a couple of those comments Saturday, I was legit taken aback. Again, you can tell the people that doesn't really follow baseball closely and just look at the score if they scroll across it on Facebook or Twitter or something. One of the guys that said something about the team, this is what they do or something like that when they start playing the better competition. He's a guy that actually I thought he at least followed it enough to know that Clemson's been pretty damn good since Eric Bakich took over. In spite of the slow start last year, in spite of losing to Tennessee at home in the regional, they've been pretty damn good. Again, I think they are 34-4 in their last 38 games. They've won, 13 out of the last 14. They've only lost 2 games so far this season, and D1 baseball has them ranked number 4 in the country. That team took some weekend series against some very good teams last year, and they've already done it this year. I think it was last week on here I talked about some of their non-conference wins already. Xavier's got some really good wins in the bank. Xavier's got some really good wins in the bank. For the person that just sent me that text, I have no idea what you're talking about. But you beat South Carolina 2 games. Kennesaw State took 2 out of 3 from Kentucky and beat their brakes off. I think UNCG's got a couple of good wins. So this team is. It's not like they played this silly week out of conference schedule. They didn't, and they had a lot of success in the non-conference. And one series into ACC play, you take 2 out of 3 from Duke, who was ranked inside the top 5 by D1 baseball at the time. A team that just took 2 out of 3 from Wake Forest last weekend, who was the number 1 team in the country. But yeah, I agree. I think Bakich is an elite level baseball coach. He is a stickler for the details and the approach they take to the mental aspect is a big part of why I think his teams are going to be so good. Brownell said they were well prepared, and when he stays losing, yeah, I don't know about that, brother. I do not know about that. You can be well prepared and still lay an egg and play like ass. I mean, that happens all the time. I get it, man. I understand how divisive the Brad Brownell subject in this fan base is, but I think it's insane that you've got Clemson fans rooting for Clemson to lose just so there's a possibility that Brownell might get fired, even though the goal going into the season was getting to the tournament. Now that you're there, fans have moved the goalpost, and now they're saying you got to win 1 or 2 games or be fired. That ain't what the AD said. If they get run out of the building by New Mexico, maybe that's a conversation you got to have. But if they're competitive, man, and they lose a competitive game, I don't know that Brownell's going anywhere unless he decides he wants to go. He might get to a point where he's sick of the Clemson fan base and wants to go and try something else. Good Lord, Clemson basketball, the fan base inside Clemson basketball is so toxic, man. It's insane. When you've got fans actively rooting for you to lose in the tournament, that is the epitome of toxic, just because they don't like the coach. And that's a damn shame. If you're rooting against Clemson just because you don't like the coach, that's slack, man. That is a damn shame. But the goal has been to get to the tournament. They're in the tournament. They are solidly in the tournament. This is 3 of the last 6 NCAA tournaments that they will have appeared in, 2 in the last 4 seasons. I have said myself, my expectations, me personally, for Clemson basketball is being in the tournament at least 50% of the time. and they're doing that right now. I don't like. I don't think it's right when the goalposts get moved during the season, and I think it's despicable if you're rooting against your own team just so you can see the possibility of a coach getting fired. Yes, Nolan Naraki's he had a little accident in the kitchen. New Mexico is favorite right now in almost all books. Number 3 is the highest. Yeah, I hadn't looked today. I just looked at a few when it came out last night. Again, this is going to be all about the guard play. People can point. People can talk about PJ Hall and where he plays and how he plays and all that all they want. But to me, it's going to come down to the guard play. And can you defend and can you knock down shots? Yeah, Clemson's defense was pretty good too. I touched on that play earlier, man. That Mathis has got a cannon for an arm, man. And Purify showed his off a little bit on that play too. But that throw was dead on the money. Again, when that ball came off the bat, I thought he was scoring, man. I thought he'd probably score rather easily. And the play ended up being a little bit. If you go back and look at it in slow motion, it was a little bit closer than it should have been. He made a good slide, but and that wasn't the only good play. Heck, Canarella made a really good play in center. He almost robbed a guy of a home run. I think it was in the bottom of the first yesterday. He just missed that ball that went over the fence. He was mad at himself for not catching. He thought he should have caught it. But Cliff's been pretty good defensively this year too. I read where Dabo is in the Bahamas. I thought Clemson's on spring break. They're off all week. Definitely go Smith on Friday. And either roll with Rocco Reed or possibly Barlow on Saturday and keep Canuck on Sundays. Move Gordon back to midweeks till he can get it going again. I'm with all of that except for the Reed part. Me personally, I'd rather keep Reed in the bullpen, give you another lefty option out there. But I wouldn't be upset if that happened or anything. But I don't think it's a terrible move. Just me personally, I like to have multiple left-handed options in the bullpen. Maybe they do look at maybe mixing things up a little bit before Florida State rolls into town. Barlow's starting tomorrow, so he's definitely going to be one of the guys that goes this weekend. If I had to, if there's going to be a change, I would probably lean towards just thinking that they get moved around and maybe Smith and Gordon get switched. I'm not even sure they're going to do that. But again, if it's me, I'm at least having the conversation because I think Smith's been your best pitcher. Even if Gordon hadn't gotten roughed up a little bit the past couple of weeks and he's been solid, I'm still probably having that conversation because that's just how good Tristan Smith's been. Think this 2025 class is not even halfway done. No, we're at 11, I think, commitments, and you're probably looking at you're probably right about the halfway point. You're probably looking at 21, 22, 23, something like that. It just depends on if you have any unexpected attrition. when I saw Wiggins air ball a three in the first half, I knew it was going to be a long night. You got those two big threes right there at the end of the half from Gerard, and you hope that would, if you're a Clemson fan, you're hoping that's going to be some momentum you carry into the second half. But it just didn't work out that way, and Gerard didn't hit another three the rest of the night, if I'm remembering right. Clemson's guards are not very good rebounders. That's been a problem all season long. They, for the most part, haven't been, in my opinion, very good defenders. I thought, we're talking about Wiggins here, I thought Wiggins would have probably taken a bigger jump this year than he has, because I think that guy's really talented. It's going to be interesting to see what Brownell does in the portal after the season's over, because they need some. You're probably losing Hunter. I'll be surprised if he comes back. I know he's got another season of eligibility if he can use, but I'll be surprised if he comes back. You're losing Gerard. You need I'd be surprised if he doesn't go and look for a couple of guards that can score and who are better defenders. But they absolutely, even in their losses this year, they've at least been competitive, man. They hadn't gotten blown out until the other night all season long. You don't have the bad, ugly losses like you did last year outside of the one at home to Georgia Tech. I think that you had no quad 4 losses. I think that was the only quad 3 loss you had. Probably had one or two more in quad 2 than you probably should have, and then you had 5 or 6 wins in quad 1. It wasn't a terrible season. I know the way it ended leaves a bad taste in the mouth, but the season's being made out to be much worse than it is by some. Seems like we're trending for Sanders. I would say you have that thing headed in the right direction. Absolutely. I'll be surprised if he makes a decision before the summertime. I would fully expect him to go and take his officials and then make a decision. But if you're Clemson, you're right where you want to be. Part of the reason you hired Matt Luke was to be better at recruiting along the offensive line, because Clemson had major issues recruiting offensive linemen in 2024. And he seems to have rectified some of that, actually a lot of that. And again, that's one of the reasons you bring him on board. And without him, you might not even be hearing David Sanders and Clemson in the same sentence right now, because I think they were headed in the opposite directions in December. And here we are, middle of March, and Clemson might be the leader for him. Nobody knows that but him. But definitely hearing a lot of the right things, and he's saying a lot of the right things publicly. Again, you're right where you want to be heading into, to the summer. Is Dabo making more headway with high school recruits because he is staying away from the portal? Seems like better talent is moving towards Clemson. I don't think the reason why you see an uptick in recruiting has anything to do with Clemson's portal strategy. Not generally speaking, anyways. Maybe it does with maybe there's an exception or two here and there, but kids do like the fact that they know he's not going to go out and give their spot away to a guy in the portal. But that's been the case since the portal opened. Nothing's changed there. It's been that way. That's always been the pitch, and he tells the parents that, and that's one thing Clemson's pretty respected for on the trail, is being transparent and open and honest with guys, and they don't blow smoke up anybody's ass or anything like that. I go back to I touched on it a minute ago about them having offered way fewer kids than they than they routinely do. They usually end up around 100, 105, 110 offers. They're not even at 60 right now. Last time I looked, anyways, and I don't think it's changed since then. I think it was at 50 something, but I, I think that's a sign of them knowing. I think that's a sign of the evaluation process being a little bit better this go around. You're having more success with some of the guys higher on your board, so you're not having to expand as quickly as you did last year, the year before last, or as much, maybe not as quickly, but as much as you did last year, the year before last. But I think there are things about Clemson that still resonate with certain high school prospects and their families. I think the way Dabo ties education into the pitch and that stuff is one of those factors. I think it really resonates with some guys, not a majority of guys, some guys. And you've got to be really good at weeding out the ones who are just looking for the money and finding the ones that are behind what you're selling and are going to be as loyal to you as you are to them. Again, that I do think his portal philosophy, it probably helps you with some guys here and there, but I don't think it's that's not something that just happened overnight. That's always been the philosophy. Um, I just think there are kids that out there that are still looking for the cultural aspect and the education aspect. I know I talk to a lot of recruits. Let's use Tay Harris, for example. He wants to be a first round NFL draft pick. Make no mistake. That's his goal. He wants to play in the league. But he also mentions education. That's a priority for him. I talked to a 2026 guy the other day. I think it was the in-state offensive lineman Desmond Green, who told me that he wants to be an NFL player, but he's got goals set for himself for before he gets there. Before that time comes, he wants to graduate. He's got a certain GPA he wants to graduate with, and Clemson's graduation rate, as opposed to some of these other schools that big boy football schools, I think that's one of the things that really sticks out, especially when you start getting down to the parents. So not everybody out there is looking for the biggest payday. Some of these guys still realize that the big money, is in the big money's coming down the road, and they're not being short sighted about that. And also realizing that there are plenty of worthy NIL opportunities at Clemson. They're just not going to say, "Hey, we're going to give you so and so to sign on the dotted line." They're not going to do it that way. But there are ample opportunities for you to come in here and make money at Clemson via NIL or sponsorships or whatever. And but for me, that's a big part of it. I think there are still, not as many as there were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but there's still kids out there and talented kids out there that realize the value in a degree, and seeing how many Clemson's pumping out, and heck, and doing it in 3 years these days. I think that's a big thing with some of these guys. 2025 class shaping up to be the best I've seen in 48 years. Real talent in this program is skyrocketing. Yeah, I like what Clemson did in the last recruiting class. You really kind of restocked along the defensive line. I like you kind of restocked with the skill positions. It was 2023 you restocked in along the defensive line. And I really love what they've done in 2025. I know Juju Preston is not this big 5-star receiver, man, but he is lights out fast. think he's severely underrated. The one wide receiver they've got committed right now. I'm a big believer in Blake Ebert. I think he can be really good in Garrett Riley's offense, and I think Gideon Davison has the makings of a superstar. I think Amari Adams has the potential to be an elite level defensive lineman at the collegiate level. I've watched him play a lot, and that for me, the only thing he's got left to do at the high school level is kind of learn how to make sure that motor's running every single play. Once he gets that motor running every single play, watch out. But yeah, there's a lot of talent so far committed in the 2025 class. There's a reason Dabo Swinney was saying, if Clemson was a stock, you better buy it, because I think he believes that, man. I think he fully believes they're on the way back up. It'll be interesting to see if he can get them all the way back up. You're going to get a good indicator of where this program is in game one when you face off against Georgia. But I do like the direction it's headed. Kirby showing Georgia's academics to Sanders, like Jason teaching a trig class at FMU. Hey, bro, I know trigonometry. You would be surprised. Davis Sanders is another guy that makes academics a priority. So when he goes on some of these visits, that's going to be one of the things he's asking about. So if you're Georgia or, even Clemson for that matter, you better be prepared with that stuff. And if you're looking at Georgia's graduation rate, it's bad. So Kirby better find a way to dress it up a little bit and make it look a little bit better than what it actually is, because that's been more of a football factor than a place for graduating kids in recent years. And, Clemson's graduation rate among these big boy football schools is second to none. Nobody's graduating more, and I think that's going to be one factor in this recruitment, but just one of many. Do you think Wright will go back to second base when Rocky returns? I would think so, yes. You still got to find a way to get Purify some at bats. But when Rocky went out, man, he had the second highest batting average on the team and was second on the team in RBIs. I don't know that's a guy you could bench. That would be hard for me to do. So, yeah, I would expect it to go back to like it was. I'll be surprised if it doesn't. Purify is going to be a superstar at Clemson. I fully believe that. But he's hitting 250. Rocky's hitting 381. And again, he had the second most RBIs when he went out. Not sure how much second base Purify's played before he got to Clemson. He played a lot of shortstop. Sometimes it looks that way. It looks like it's a position he's still learning how to play. Which is to be expected if a guy's not played or not very experienced in that position. So, same thing would be, Rocky's got a couple of errors himself over there on the hot corner, but I go back to what he's done at the plate. Is for me, it would be hard to sit a guy that is hitting 381, 13 RBIs in 28 at-bats. No, wait a minute. I'm looking at the wrong person. 13 RBIs in 42 at-bats. 3 home runs. So he's 16 of 42 on the season. He scored 12 runs. I mean, he's been very productive when he's been in there. I didn't mean you specifically. I didn't mean you were rooting for him to lose. I've seen a lot of Clemson fans on Facebook and Twitter saying they hope Clemson loses in the first round. That's what I was referring to. I didn't mean to make it sound like it was you specifically. My bad if I made it sound that way. Beat the closer from Duke to give him his first loss. Yeah, not only that, you scored the first earned run against him that he's had scored on him all season too. Yeah, their closer's the real deal, man. He's good. Took them a while to get to him. They finally got to him yesterday. So he had their number Friday, and he had their number for an inning or so or whatever it was yesterday too. He just when you're asking your closer to throw 100 pitches or whatever it was, over 2 days during a weekend of series, that's asking a lot. Enjoy the show. Keep up the good work. Yeah, much appreciated, man. We will be here every Monday at 7. Matter of fact, as soon as I jump off here, I am driving up that way tonight. I'll be at the baseball game tomorrow. If you've not hit that like button, please do so. If you've not hit that subscribe button, I'd ask you to do that too. Any of you guys out there own a business, know somebody owns a business, want to slap a name on this thing, holler at me. I can set you up there too, and probably very reasonably priced. So I'm fixing to throw a name on this bad boy. Some fans want every coach fired. Dabo, Brownell, Backus. Yeah, I saw enough last year, at the very least, suggesting Dabo should be on the hot seat, and that's crazy, man. It's crazy. That guy's won 2 national titles, and you want to fire him the second things start getting tough. You don't want to even give him the opportunity to get it back to where it was. It is crazy how loud the vocal minority has gotten, due to the internet these days. It's why, I've said it before, it's why I stay off message boards. They're just so toxic. I wouldn't pull against Clemson, but when Brownell is paid in the top 30 of all basketball coaches, I expect more than 4 appearances in the tournament in 14 years. Yes. On the surface, correct. Same thing. I'm going to get to your right here. 414 is not 50%. You are correct. I do, if you want to count what Brownell was having to recruit with before the renovations and stuff, I don't. They had to spend time not even playing at home, kill recruiting, man. They had some of the worst facilities in the league. I'm kind of going over the last half of his tenure and what he's done since he's got the facilities upgrade. Again, 3 tournament appearances in the last 6 tournaments. They didn't have a tournament one year, so that's 7 years. 2 out of the last 4 years. To me, that would be showing signs of heading in the right direction. Now, if you want to nitpick and go all the way back and count those early years, the early half of his tenure when he was trying to recruit in the brutal facilities, that's fair game. I don't. I don't personally. I don't give a damn what he did those first 6 years. Most basketball coaches, there would be probably very few coaches that would have come to Clemson and won under those circumstances. There's a reason Oliver Purnell had to use a gimmick to win at Clemson and got exposed once he got into the tournament. It's been one of the more difficult jobs in the country, and I think the advent of the portal is something that's helped Brownell too, because like him or hate him, he's had some success recruiting in the portal. Don't think Gerard's been quite the guy that we all thought he was going to be. But without him, you're probably not as good as you've been this season. But that's kind of how I look at it. Yeah, I get it. It's been 4 and 14 years overall. But, man, I'm only going back, until back when they got settled into the facilities. And, if you want to go 4 for 14, fine. Well, guess what? 3 of those 4 have come in the last 6 tournaments. That would tell me things are on an upward trajectory. So that's kind of how I would view that. That's on the surface, 4 of 14 sucks, and it's not 50%. But it'd be remiss to not at least factor in the terrible facilities that they were housed in over those first however many years it was. So I'm going back to once they got good and settled in and were able to recruit into new facilities. I still don't know why they didn't just tear it down and build a whole new thing, but that kind of shows you that basketball is never going to be the top priority at Clemson. I do not know when Naraki's going to be back. I was just told that he, had a accident in the kitchen and had a little sliced his thumb. I don't know if I'm assuming he needed stitches, seeing how long he's been out. I will ask tomorrow though when I get up there, because I was kind of thinking he'd had already been back by now, but now that he's not been back yet, I'm assuming he must have had to have stitches. Y'all hear my dogs going bat crap crazy in there? Somebody's in my yard. Let's see here. Somebody asked me about Jack Clark. Does he have any eligibility left? No, I do not think he does. When Chase Hunter is aggressive offensively and shooting, that's when they're at their best. He was non-existent in the ACC tournament. I think Chase is at his best when he's being aggressive and attacking the basket, not hanging around the perimeter and selling for threes. I thought they all started to do that a little bit. Clemson does when they're not playing well, man. They get a little 2-3 happy at times. We've seen it several times this season, and I think Brad Brownell talked a little bit about this last night about them not being really built to come back from large deficits. I kind of agree with that because you don't have the shooters. Chase is a streaky shooter, but this season, man, he's been far more cold than hot. I said it the other day. Too bad they can't play in Atlanta every night. He'd be lights out. I mean, he's usually pretty good when they play in Atlanta in his hometown, but he's not been very good from the perimeter since about the start of ACC play. And so when you factor that in, to me, it's a no-brainer, man. Get him slashing and cutting and driving to the basket and creating off the dribble. That's what I'd like to see Chase do. Instead of, which I thought in the second half of the season he started doing more of that. I don't think any of them played well the other night against Boston College, but I do think Chase has been shooting less threes of late and been a little bit more aggressive. I know Jarrell will be in the lineup mainly for his defense when he comes back, but hopefully get some solid offense from him too. He seems to struggle a bit. Yeah, his strikeout numbers so far have been high. We'll see what he does this year. By all accounts, he had a pretty good preseason. see. His team's only struck out 146 times all year, so there's not. It's not. I think Chufo and Obertop struck out 19 times. Those are the two highest on the team, but um, they've been pretty good about putting the ball in play. We'll see when Gerald gets back if that's the case with him, but I get your point about the strikeouts, though. He has been a guy that struck out a lot in the past. He's also got a guy that's got some pop in that bat too. He's had 7 at bats this year, and he struck out 4 of them. Yeah, Sanders has official visits set to South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, and Tennessee, and I don't expect him to make a decision before taking his officials. Same thing with Mason Short. I know he was just at Georgia this weekend. He was just at Clemson a few days before that. I fully expect him to get through his officials too before he makes a decision. As for Josh Petty, of all those guys, I like their chances with him the least. It's sometimes it's just going to head in a different direction, and that's what I'll say about him. Think Joe Wilkinson and Watson Young will actually have any significant contributions to the team? I think Joe Wilkinson will, yeah. I think he will. I think Watson Young's kind of to be determined. He's a guy you kind of take a flyer on there late in the cycle. You know, he was a backup plan. Let's be frank. He wasn't a take until Clemson missed on some other guys and missed on the guys in the portal, and then they decided to, take him. Fortunately, you don't need it. They brought him in to be to possibly be your center of the future. So fortunately, you don't need him this year. You don't need him next year. You might not even need him the year after that. So he has the luxury of being able to sit for 2 or 3 years and develop, which he's coming off of an injury now. I mean, he's going to have to redshirt this year, no matter what. And those are the kind of guys that Clemson's had some success with. Undervalued guys that they turn. If you go back and look at some of the guys that have started at center in the Dabo Sweeney era, you're going to see a guy or two like Watson Young. So we'll see if he turns into that. But with what you got on the roster right now and the way you're recruiting 2025, I think you have the luxury of taking a flyer on a guy like that from time to time. I don't know about that. I'll say what I've said for weeks now. If you throw enough shit against the wall, something's bound to stick when it comes to this realignment stuff. Clemson's got to get out of the ACC no matter what. They might not have a choice in what they have to take. I'll say that. They might have to, grab their ankles and grit their teeth there for a few years, but you got to do something to get out. How about That pitcher on Sunday, dude, is a stud. Yeah, I talked a little bit about him earlier. If you watch me, you've heard me talk about Aiden Kanaka a little bit over the past few weeks. Um, Talked about him a lot in the preseason, particularly after I finally got to watch him throw in one of the intra squad scrimmages there before the season started because he was the best pitcher I saw all preseason. Um, I think Tristan's been probably the best pitcher in season so far, but Canuck's not far behind. He is not your typical freshman. That changeup is elite. He threw that guy. That golly was I forgot his name. The Duke player with all the home runs. He comes up there in a big spot yesterday. Um, Very first pitch, Canuck throws him that changeup. That is how much confidence he's got in that thing. It is a swing and a miss pitch. It is just, and the television, I don't think does it any justice. Um, Not that I've watched him pitch a lot on television. I've just seen some clips, but um, it he's only going to get better. You know that's your Friday night starter of the future right there. Probably it gives Clemson a really really good 1-2 punch on the mound. And talked about it earlier. You know, if it's me, I'm at least having the conversation of moving maybe moving Tristan to Friday and putting Austin on Saturday, or giving somebody else a shot on Saturday because for whatever reason I know Gordon was behind some of the other guys and it took him longer to get stretched out, but he ain't there yet. He ain't there yet, and when he makes a mistake, it tends to be up high and it tends to be deposited into the stands. um, when he's good, he's really good. But we have not seen that Gordon yet this year, and even if he does get back to what we were seeing out of him last year, I still think Smith's the better pitcher. I think he's just on a different level. Um, Again, if it's me, I'm having that conversation. I am still skeptical about the O line improvement. That's fair, man. Hey, seeing is believing, right? You want to see it to believe it. I'm kind of I think that's absolutely 100% fair. You've heard Dabo Sweeney, or let's just say Dabo's kind of gotten the fan base's hopes up several times over the past few years, in spring or in fall camp about, the way the offensive line's looking, only for it to not pan out that way. So I think it's more than fair to approach the season with some cautious optimism, or just cautiously. um, I think we've kind of seen lackluster O line player. Let's just say less than or subpar offensive line play for 2-3 years now, and until you see different, it's fair to it's I think it's fair to say, hey man, I'm not going to believe it till I see it. Yeah, I can't bring the dog on me. She's too big, man. I got two of them. One is a basset hound. I usually lock her out of here when I'm doing this. Somebody pulled in the yard and they were both going bat crap crazy. And the one's a basset hound. She weighs about 50 pounds. She's about as long as my desk here, so getting her on here would be next to impossible. And the other one, my other dog's a pit lab mix, and she's probably about 75 pounds. So if it was a little one, I could just scoop her right up and do it. But I got two big dogs. I think I had a dog food delivery in the yard, is what that was actually. Let's see here. See, and I think it's Miller that I'm thinking of for Duke. I think it's Miller. I know it's not Morris. I think Miller's the guy I'm looking for. They got several big poppers in that lineup, though, but I think Miller's the guy I'm thinking of. Yes, I think there's been a big emphasis placed on offensive line recruiting in the 2025 class, particularly after the way things went in 2024. I do think Clemson ended up finishing about as well as could be expected in the 2024 class, depending on how things were looking, a month before early signing day. You were just missing on guy after guy after guy. You went 1 for 6 on the guys you brought to the big official visit weekend. You went 0 for 3 on the in-state guys, even though 2 of them you were never getting to begin with. But still, from a perception standpoint, the optics are bad. I like Mason Wade. The guy they flipped from Duke. I think he's going to end up being a good player. And I still believe Clemson's got talent in the room right now. I think Owens and Sewell and Ian Reed were 3 good offensive linemen that Thomas Austin signed in his first year. And I think Blake Miller and Colin Sadler are 2 good offensive linemen. I think Tristan Lee's really still just starting to scratch the surface of what he can do. So I think there's talent to work with. But yeah, after what happened last year and the way things went on the recruiting trail, and not just on the recruiting trail, but on the field of play, and I'm not sure – I've said it before. I'm not sure Thomas Austin's coaching philosophy meshed all that well with what Garrett Riley wants to do on offense. Let's put it that way. So you go out and make a change because it wasn't just recruiting. Clemson's offensive line played like ass most of last season. They had their moments. The Notre Dame game, the South Carolina game, they were okay. I mean, there was a moment here, and they picked their spots, but particularly, especially over the first half of the season, man, there was some bad O-line play. So you go out and make a change. Part of that is due to the failures on the recruiting trail, and yeah, it's been a priority in 2025. You already got, you got Braden Jacobs is already committed, who I'm not convinced is committed already. If Thomas Austin's still in the fold, obviously Easton Ware's been on board for a while. Jalen Beckley was committed, decommitted. He's not coming back into the fold. They're going to move on, and Clemson's probably, even though I think Beckley's going to be a good offensive lineman, Clemson's probably going to end up with a higher rated recruit. Let's put it that way. If Matt Luke's not hired, you're probably not in it for David Sanders right now. I don't think you're in it for Mason Short right now. I don't think you ever got Josh Petty back on campus last week. There's just if you look at the guys they're targeting, they're some of the better offensive linemen in the class. One of them's arguably the top player in the class. So, yeah, there is absolutely an emphasis been put on offensive line recruiting. They want to be better up front, and that starts with on the recruiting trail. I believe Clemson's got talent on that roster right now. I think you just got to find a way to cultivate it and, bring it out. But you still got to keep replenishing it, because it turns over. Clemson's got 4 or 5 starters coming back this year, but, you don't get that every year. And at some point it's going to turn over again. And so you got to recruit them every year. It wouldn't hurt my feelings if Clemson took a minimum of 3 offensive linemen every year. I think you should take 4 probably, but that's just me. Don't forget, if you've not hit that like button, please do so. Hit that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to the channel. I would very much appreciate it. Look for me and Zach right back here every Thursday at noon for Paul Talk. And Good Lord, I've run way over tonight. Totally lost track of the time there. As always, though, every Monday we're gonna be right back here every Monday, 7 o'clock. Still got a couple of recruiting interviews that's gonna go up that haven't published yet. Be on the lookout for them on the site, allclemsontigers.com. If I don't see you Thursday, I will see you right back here next Monday. Appreciate everybody that tuned in.